Good evening and welcome to EHM's Virtual Sessions. My name is Harry Wareing, your host for tonight's show. My guests in the EHM Virtual Studio this evening are not named Ivan or Alyosha, but received their band name from the producer of their first album, who was a fan of the novel, The Brothers Karamazov. 13 years ago, Tim and Ryan began as a duo, and 10 years ago, they filled out the band, growing up to 5 members, including Tim's brother Pete. They've worked hard over the past decade, learning, growing as musicians, and they've just released a new self-titled full-length album, and they also have a new Christmas album out as well. Please welcome Tim, Ryan, and Pete, otherwise known as Ivan and Alyosha. Thanks for doing this.
You got it.
Thanks for having us, man.
This is our pleasure.
Be with you.
Thank you for doing it. As we start up, why don't we start with a song, and then we'll start chatting about the new record.
Excellent. This one's called Everybody Breaks. I've been looking for the water, looking for the sea, searching for my trouble, but my trouble finds me. Everybody breaks, everybody breaks, everybody breaks sometimes. I've been looking for the answer, don't help me find cure to my cancer, 'cause I've been there before. Everybody breaks, everybody breaks, everybody breaks sometimes. Who's gonna bend now? Who's gonna break? Who's got the map to tell me what's at stake? I've been walking elementary trying to find the people that sent me to the end of my rope. Everybody breaks, everybody breaks, everybody breaks sometime. Who's been taking all my lines? Been trying to realize, but if the pen doesn't scratch, maybe it just don't show. Everybody breaks, what's it gonna take? Everybody breaks sometime. Who's gonna mention what we're talking about? Baby, you ain't brave when you whisper out loud. I've been acting eco-friendly, moving with the times. Takes a lot to offend me, but I'm crying in my beer. Everybody breaks, everybody breaks, everybody breaks sometimes. The water is clear way on the other side. When you heard the rock and roll, did you change your mind? The fever breaks, you think it's one of a kind. When you heard the rock and roll, did you change your mind? Everybody wants the crown. Everybody wants the crown. When it's upside down, point it to the ground. Everybody wants the crown. Everybody wants the crown. Everybody wants the crown. When it's upside down, point it at you and I. Oh, who's gonna try? Oh, who's gonna try? I've been looking for the water, looking for the sea, searching for my trouble, but my trouble finds me. Everybody breaks, everybody breaks, everybody breaks sometime. I've been looking for the answer, don't help me find the cure to my cancer, 'cause I've been there before. Everybody breaks, everybody breaks, everybody breaks sometime.
Very nice. Ivan and Alyosha, something new from the self-titled album, which just came out, and they're joining us here in the EHM Virtual Studio as we get together to talk about this new record, obviously released under a little bit of a different circumstances than I'd imagine. If I'm not mistaken, this album has been around for a few years in the making, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. We actually took a trip. I like to talk about this because it's fun. Took a trip to Las Vegas, Nevada 2 summers ago to celebrate the completion of the record. We then started kind of spending gobs on money, paying guys that we really love, like mixing engineers, guys to mix the record. try some things out, and then eventually added one more song to the record this last summer. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
There you have it.
What do you want to say, Pete?
2 years to get it out. I know you signed with a new record company. The album was finished before you got with Network, right? And then you kind of figured out how to release it. Was it hard?
Yeah.
Was it hard to, because you had this album in your mind where you placed all the songs where you wanted them, and now you're just releasing parts of it. Was it? It had to be a little different to do it that way for you.
Yeah, that felt very different, and I don't know if we were really on board at the beginning because we put out a few records now, and it's always everything's different right now, but it was always put out the record, pick a single, tour, and then come back and do it again. So this was obviously we had to rethink everything, but we've enjoyed putting it out slowly. It makes sure like every song gets the light of day too, because sometimes there's a few singles and then the rest is just kind of in the background. But this was fun because we cared about all these songs individually a lot, so we got to spend time making sure that they're all taken care of and heard.
What was the last song you added? Was it Whiskey and Wine? I was curious.
It was a song called "Coming Alive."
Oh, wow. Okay, that's interesting. All right. It's interesting to see how this album is sequenced. And I kind of want to start it, too, where I'm curious, the thought process of releasing a self-titled album, is this kind of a new start for the band? I know you took some time off for a bit.
I think, if I may, the self-titled thing, to me, always felt like we were saving that for a record that really maybe kind of we felt really accurately kind of portrayed the band how we wanted, or maybe how we've always wanted to, the record we've always wanted to make, whatever. Like, I think feeling like we saved that for an important or special moment, and this felt like that moment. So, if that makes sense.
No, it does, because it's interesting, and this is just from listening to the album. I'm curious about the song order, how much went into that, and I could be reading into this, but it starts off really hopeful with Coming Alive, and it really seems like a roller coaster of emotions. There are times when I wanted to ask you if you were okay, and then a couple songs later you were, and then we ended with Whiskey and Wine, and I wasn't sure.
It's a sign of the times.
Nightcap.
But it's interesting because it really is, I guess that's indicative of life, and maybe I'm reading into it, but it seems like you guys have been through a lot as a band in a decade, where you've kind of seen the ups and the downs. You get started, you get signed, you release albums, you think it's going to be this certain way, and then you're kind of fighting to keep it going, but you're also raising a family too. What was this album, as you mentioned, that this album kind of is the one you wanted to put out? What was the song order process? Am I close, or am I completely wrong in my listening to it?
I mean, well, what's kind of amazing, and I appreciate you doing your research, like, it's interesting to hear that kind of 15-year snapshot through the eyes, see it through the eyes of someone who's kind of looking at it and kind of taking it in like in a biography sense, and us kind of like going, oh yeah, wow, that's quite.
Everyone has their own perspective on it, and I have a different. Yeah, I have my own. I bring my own life to viewing all this stuff.
Absolutely. And I think, well, that's another thing we've been talking about in these radio things is like people also, you as a listener, you're gonna hear that song through your own lens. And again, it's always interesting. Like, we might have the original intent behind the song, but then to hear from other people what they're pulling out of it, like, that's more interesting than going like, no. The original purpose of the song was this, so you can't pull that out of it. But I think what you're saying is true, just about like the progression of the band, and I think the history of the band and the ups and downs, and I think at this point, hopefully we're able to look at it all and go, we're better for it, we're stronger for it, we're thankful for all the experiences that we've had, and we kind of coming into making a record, or someday when we get to tour again, hopefully, we know all the things we don't want to do, and I think that's how we made this record, is like, we didn't have a label, we didn't have a manager. We had no booking agent. We made a record how we used to make records, which is us
Yeah.
at a cabin or whatever. Like Ryan Engineering, there was no producer in the room other than Ryan, but no outside producer like dude we don't know messing up the process. Not that they mess up the process.
Right. No, it was definitely a fresh start as far as you'd mentioned. We did take a little bit of time off, and and we weren't. It was never like we had a conversation like, guys, I need a break. It was just we were all burnt out, and then. But I mean, we are definitely friends before bandmates, so we would just hang out and have a fire pit and drink beer and share songs that we've been working on. It's like it definitely got back to the beginning of like, yeah, I like these guys, I like their songs. We should record.
Because I feel like I've done a lot of these radio Zoom things, and one of the themes that happens is, especially if it's a musician that's been doing this over time, it's they're now doing it for the right reasons in some way. Where not that they weren't, but they were starting and got some fame or whatnot, and then they realized, wait, I don't want all this control over me. I want to do it this way, or this is how I see this project. It's kind of cool, and I kind of see that in your mindset with this project as well. I want to talk about one song on the record, Tim, Hanging On. I know you wrote this during a rough patch. I'm curious, what's it like to bring such a personal song to the band? It's your brother, and you guys have been together for a while, but I'd imagine most songwriters have kind of like a personal diary of songs where you have them, you've written, but what's it like to release that to your bandmates and kind of get their reactions?
I mean, I was talking to my wife about this the other day, that maybe like because it's the five of us, and because I think, like you were saying, even with this record, there's some like heavy stuff. There's some hopeful stuff, and there's some really heavy stuff too. I think because it's the five of us, and because Ryan and Pete are also willing to go there, I think I'm willing to go there. So on the last record, Ryan wrote this song called Tears in Your Eyes, and it's just like
depressing.
The biggest kick in the balls, like the best song ever written. It's just like, it's not depressing, but it's just gorgeous, and there's like a depth to it and an honesty to it that's just like, holy crap. Like, so I think maybe the first thing that comes to mind is like, it's easier that it's the five of us, and we know if we give something over that's really honest, that it's going to be received well, if that makes sense. And I think, but too, with Hanging On, it took me a little bit to show it to the guys, but I think I was kind of encouraged by some sort of like video blog thing I was watching, and a little known musician named Bono.
It's pronounced Bono.
Bono was saying, like, in order to have basically like a depth of relationship with the listener, you have to be willing to go to kind of those deep, dark places. And that's really kind of what gave me some license to like, okay, I can write something that's really brutal and give it away in hopes that it really makes a deep and long-lasting connection with the listener. So I'll stop talking, but that's kind of that song.
We've had quite a few friends that have spent time on the road who they're like, yeah, really love the record, Hanging On, hit me so hard. Because like, if you ever spend any time on the road, it's like, when the dream becomes a nightmare and everybody wants what you're selling for free. Like when I heard that lyric, I'm like, oh my gosh, like that is.
And by the way, thank you for doing this session. We really appreciate that. Not for free. I heard that, like, yeah, they work a lot at these, so I appreciate it. So thank you for your time today.
No, it's more people just wanting a handful of vinyls for free at the end of a show.
Yeah, no, I understand. I can imagine.
But you guys take, I mean, we still. The last several months with Network, we're like, when are we going to radio? When are we going to radio?
Mm-hmm.
When are we going to radio? That, your guys' support is always so huge.
Mm-hmm.
I would say maybe people consuming music digitally and not really engaging with it on a deep level. I would say that's not true of a indie radio listener who trusts the DJs in their town to like play great music, and then they go, "Oh man, I love this song. Who is this? Where are these guys?" Anyways, so radio is huge.
Yeah.
No, and we appreciate you doing this. Why don't we do one more song? Well, we'll do a couple tonight, but let's do another track.
Cool.
You gonna be hanging on?
Yeah, let's play Hanging On. Cool. Okay. Here we go. I guess I don't have to count myself in, do I? Hanging on for dear life. I couldn't live up to my own hype. I stopped believing my own lie, and it scares me to think I don't have it in me anymore. When the dream becomes a nightmare, and you're trying to get some sleep, all the things I thought I wanted, they never wanted me. They never wanted me. We talk of dreams and reality. I'd rather be awake than I would asleep. I'd rather be home than on the go. But if I never try, well then I suppose I will never know. When the dream becomes a nightmare, and you're trying to get some sleep, all the things I thought I wanted, they never wanted me. They never wanted me. When your ideas are too expensive, and everybody wants what you're selling for free. When the dream becomes a nightmare, who's it gonna be? Who's it gonna be? Still hanging on for dear life. I couldn't live up to my own hype. I stopped believing my own lie, and it scares me to think I don't have it in me anymore.
Very nice. Ivan and Alyosha from the new record, which is out now. Thank you so much for doing this tonight. We appreciate it. I wanted to talk a little bit about something you did early on for this album, because it's funny because you've said you've completed 2 years ago, and then I was looking at like the videos came out last year, but they were really creative. You did 2 of them, I believe, which and I hope I'm saying this name right. Ben Filippo, is that right? You did something really interesting. I watched the second one first accidentally, so I was very confused. And then it made sense. Like, wait a second, like why did he burn his thing down? I don't know what's going on here, but it was very different. How did that come about? Was that whose idea was that, and to kind of create the storyline videos for those 2 songs?
I think early on it was a collaboration between the record label and the band going, and management too, but going, hey, we want to shoot a video first for Everybody Breaks. They suggested Ben, who is an amazing filmmaker. We've never met him. He lives out in Boston. We've never actually met him. But they showed us his reel. We were stoked to have him kind of explore some ideas for Everybody Breaks initially, but it was really then his idea to shoot Everybody Breaks and then keep going with Hit the Floor. We've never done that before where the band's not in the video and it's just that visual narrative, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I think, I don't know, at the time we were kind of just interested in exploring that and trusting him to really go for it. And honestly, how it all ended up with like the acting and like the caliber of the whole thing, I think we were just really pleased with the whole thing. We actually wanted to do one more video that would kind of like tie in that, finish that story, and maybe we still will, but...
Yeah, I was hoping for a third one because I was curious if, dare I say, if they got away or what happened with it. You'll have to.
Yeah.
Well, that's the idea for the third video. Is it's a police chase for the, and like at the end, everyone dies.
We'll do Stop Falling.
Wow.
Stop. That's great.
No, very creative though. I enjoyed them. I guess is what I'm saying. And I want to.
Thank you.
I'm curious about the dynamics of working with your brother, first off, because he wasn't in the band initially. And I'd imagine it's, it has good things, but I'm curious because you guys, everyone writes in songs in it, but I'm curious what the differences are between like your brother and yourself as far as, is there a Tim song that when Ryan hears it, he knows it's a Tim song or he knows it's a Tim song? And even the Ryan song as well.
Mine usually only have like 3 chords, so they know.
And a red guitar and the truth. I think, well, these are wonderful questions. Pete writes really like poetically, like Everybody Breaks. I've been looking for the water, looking for the sea, searching for my trouble, but my trouble finds me. Like there's these kind of like really rich language that Pete writes, almost like cosmic, biblical, whatever. There's like a real depth to Pete's writing. And I would say for moi, early on, and maybe this is just my own limitation, like our strengths being our biggest weaknesses, whatever. Like I try to find really simple language that I think will maybe connect in an immediate way. Yeah. Like where a song like The Fold or a song like Hanging On or Don't Lose Your Love, it's pretty specific and pretty between the eyes. And I'm not comparing when one is better than the other, but I think with Pete, it's like more of like, it's like poetry. And you're like, Pete, what the hell are you saying here?
I'm curious. Pete, would you agree with that? Because I feel like he gave you all the praise and was like, I'm all right.
No, I mean, we all...
I give you all the praise.
The 3 of us, like being the primary songwriters in the band, like whenever, no matter who's writing what, like we know pretty immediately when like the cream rises to the top, like, okay, that's an Ivan song right there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I'd agree with that because I think, I mean, Hanging On's a great example as far as like, that's gonna hit you right between the eyes, and if you get it, you're gonna get it right away, and it's gonna be very personal. And I think as far as like Ryan's jams, I think they're also very personal, but maybe in a more like little zoomed out kind of way. Which Ryan's wife actually asked me or told me the other day, like, yeah, every time people hear tears in your eyes, they're like, are you okay? She's like, yes, it's like, but it's a very personal thing, taken to an extreme, but
that makes sense. How did you guys meet? How'd you meet? Actually, Tim, do you want to?
Oh, raising my hand. My wife's a teacher. But I would say the songs Ryan writes, I'm thinking too, are probably the most musically strenuous, where I'm like asking, how do you play that chord? Like, how do we actually play this? So I would say Ryan is advanced in his ability to, like a chord progression becomes something quite a bit more colorful than if I'm going, something pretty simple. So I would say that too brings a lot of life into the band in the writing.
How did you guys all meet each other? Because I know Ryan and Tim first, but obviously you knew your brother, but it wasn't part of the band. What kind of brought you guys together as a unit after a couple of years?
We went to high school with Tim Kim, who is our guitar player. And funny enough, shout out to Tim Kim. Tim Kim's been doing all our like art direction stuff as well recently, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Obviously, Pete and I grew up together.
From the womb.
Ryan, we met through friends of an old band that I was in, like a long time ago. Long time ago.
In Seattle. Yeah.
At a birthday party.
Yes. And then you went to high school with my wife.
And I went to high school with Ryan's wife. Or all of us, Pete and Tim Kim, went to high school with Ryan's wife. And then Cole, we've known for many, many years. Had a lot of mutual friends. His wife was kind of a mutual friend too, through years past, like even just going to shows in the area. Anyways, so we've known each other, for a long time.
Yeah.
So
It was all a really natural. It wasn't like we never had to put out like an ad like looking for a drummer. Like it was always, our friend group has always been really close, and it just so happens that a few of us were musicians. That kind of how that's how it felt to us.
I want to touch on the Seattle scene and how it's changed over the years in just a bit, but why don't we do one more song, the record or whatever you guys want to do. Thank you for doing this. Ivan and Alyosha here in our virtual studio, so to speak, with the 96.
I was going to say, everybody breaks. You that carries me?
Yeah, sorry. Tune it up here. Old guitar. Cool.
I'm drunk in love. I was never meant to be free. The ship is sunk, and the rain is all I can see. But it's you that carries me. Yes, it's you right next to me. The fire is warm, but in the evening it grows dark. The ember, it fades, but the emotion can always spark. 'Cause it's you that carries me. Yes, it's you right next to me. Oh, 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 the tale is told, and like a fool I fall in line. The mystery grows cold, but I ain't the quitting kind. 'Cause it's you that carries me. Yes, it's you right next to me. And the wind, it sets sail, and the heart, it prevails, and the wheels that keep on turning with you next to me. Yeah. Oh. Ooh. 'Cause it's you that carries me. Yes, it's you right next to me. 'cause it's you that carries me, yeah. 'Cause it's you right next to me. The battle is done, but the enemy draws near. Yet we hope for kingdom come. Is disappointment all we fear? But it's you carries me. Yes, it's you right next to me.
Very nice. Ivan and Alyosha here in the EHM virtual studio on Zoom. I appreciate you guys taking the time today for a chat and kind of going over the new record and some songs from it. I want to go back a little bit. I guess I'm curious for all three of you. Was music what you wanted to do initially? Obviously, you wanted to do it, but when did you kind of say, "All right, I'm gonna go for it"? Were you studying other things, other jobs?
I don't know. I mean, I think personally for me, it was just kind of it's what I always did. Like from probably 6th grade on, it was just looking for friends to play music with, and that's just kind of what you did. And then when you graduate high school, it's like, well, like I'm either going to go out to college, or I'm going to play in bands. And it's just kind of, it was always just like a very natural, like, this is what I'm going to do. And I know Ryan went to recording school and probably didn't want to play in a band at first.
I didn't have that in mind at that time. But same for me. Like ever since 6th grade, I started a band with some guys in the school bus.
Yeah.
Friends in the neighborhood, and it's kind of kept on since then.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like going to shows growing up. Like, well, my older brother would take me to ska shows, which I hated.
Oh, I loved it.
You loved it. But then
What's ska?
like going and experiencing like rock shows as like a junior high kid, or even like getting into Jimi Hendrix and all the great Seattle music that was happening back then, Nirvana and Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and Mudhoney was a big band back then. Going to Bumbershoot every September and like flipping out and crowd surfing and seeing bands. Like, I think maybe seeing it done early as a kid was like,
I want that.
yeah, like you see folks who are doing it. And I think like our folks, our parents never told us it was a bad idea. So I think that's a big part of it too, you know?
They probably should have.
Grew up in the 90s, obviously, with that grunge scene as kids. And then you've watched it kind of develop, and it's changed in the past decade with the Head and the Heart and other bands that are coming from Seattle, that sound. And you guys are obviously a different sound. How has it evolved over the years? You've watched it change in Seattle. Yeah. There's Brandy Carlisle. And...
Yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly changed, but I think the stuff that you've seen really find a voice is like, or from the Pacific Northwest, is maybe that more like singer-songwriter, Head and the Heart, Brandy, Damian Gerardo, Dave Bazan lives here in town where we are. Who else? I mean, Deep Sea Diver is another one that's really still is really strong here locally. I think there's also a strong tradition in this town. Like once you make it in Seattle, you move somewhere else. Like a lot of people going to LA if you've got the dough, or like a lot of people going to Nashville now. So I think it definitely is always changing. And with COVID now and people really not being able to play live, I'm a little concerned about what it means for the future of artists and venues and whatnot in this town, for sure. So,
yeah, I think like it has changed into more of kind of like with Damian Gerardo, like an alt country or Americana or folk rock. But the thing that's always like kept strong, like as far as like the Seattle scene is like the camaraderie behind it. Like if somebody is making it big, it's like it's not there. I think there's not as much of like a jealousy or a competition, and it's more of like that's awesome, like another Seattle band, like because we're kind of tucked away.
Yeah.
So it's when somebody is like when somebody's selling out large venues, it's like, man, that's one of our guys doing that. I don't know, like when we talk to folks in other cities, it's a little bit more competitive than I would say here.
You guys went on tour with Brandy in the early part of the decade, and you've known her. How did you develop that? Did you meet her through that, or had you known her before you went on tour?
A friend of ours was playing drums with her for like a couple shows, and then I think that kind of started the conversation, if I remember it right.
Yeah, James McAllister, who, let's just name drop here. He plays, I mean, he's amazing, and he's a sweet dude. He plays with The National and Sufjan Stevens. But back in the day, he was living here in Seattle. I met him at the coffee shop I worked at.
Oh, that's right.
He was playing drums for us. He also played drums for Brandy. And I think somehow he was like, oh, I play in this band, Ivan and Alyosha. So they took us out.
Yeah.
And we got to tour with them, and then we got another one and another one and another one. And we really, I mean, that was like, those were the days.
Man, and at that time, nobody was coming to see our shows. So they're like, yeah, you guys want to go out for a month? We're like, sure. And then we were playing in front of, thousands of people. Like,
What'd you learn from Brandy by watching her? Because you guys were kind of just starting out as a band at that time in the early part of the day. What'd you learn from watching her? Because she had been a few years in at that point, I'd imagine. And what'd you take away from it?
I mean, we said this in another interview, but we got to see how it's done.
Mm-hmm.
And they were doing it. They were doing their thing even back then. Like, they're huge now. But even back then, they're in a bus. Their tour manager was amazing. We got to see, their tour manager at the time, Rachel Hanley, really took us under her wing too. And we got there once they were done showering up for the night, 2 a.m. or whatever. And we get to go up and sleep in their hotel rooms while they move on in the bus. And
we were so broke too.
So I think maybe they were very generous with us, and but we got to see really firsthand how they treated their fans.
Oh yeah,
how they conducted themselves professionally, and I really, again, we got to see how it was done on a really high level, and I think that has maybe still never left us as far as like what is possible, and what we're capable of because we got to see it early on, if that makes sense.
That's certainly an interesting perspective to have, and not many bands get to do that, right when they're first starting out. I want to touch on the song I Don't Want to Die Anymore, which is actually the first song I ever heard from you guys, and I thought it was like a brother and sister or brother and brother team, and then I discovered that it wasn't when I dove further in. It's
that's a man singing.
Is it? But it was interesting to actually learn about you guys over the years and see that the different releases. It is such a serious topic. And I know you've been asked this question, but I feel like personally, as I have you in front of me on Zoom, is it because I heard another interview where you talked about it necessarily wasn't about, it could be construed as, with suicide and that, of course, but you kind of equated it to dreams and almost as a band sometimes and different undertakings that you and this is why I touched on earlier, where it seems like you've been through a lot to keep this band going over the decade. What was the main motivation for that song when you wrote it?
I mean, I think the chorus is definitely like a road band inspired kind of a reach for the stars. It's a hard road to get back to my home. Don't know how much farther I can go. Hang on. Know the road is long. I could teach the world to sing my song. That's like Barry Manilow or something. But I think the chorus, is like more hopeful, and the lyrics or the verses are a little darker. I mean, I haven't thought about that song in a long time. I think maybe, well, as the band has grown and changed, and again, hopefully we've learned a lot, and hopefully we've gotten better, and hopefully we've learned a lot of what we don't want to do along with what we do want to do. I think even just personally, maybe I had an immature sense, like late 20s, early 30s, of if I don't get this, that, or the other thing, then I don't, just get me out of here, in kind of an apocalyptic sense. But I think that song is like, I don't want to die. I don't think I'm done. I don't think I'm cooked. Like, give me a purpose. Give me a reason. Give me something. Give me a song to sing. Give me something important to do. I think that song is like,
No, I was very hopeful, actually, because it's like, no, I'm going, and not that you necessarily, I never took it personally that, but I think with, I equated it to radio and that type of career, which not necessarily easy, so to speak, or any really where that you're involved in something that's not exactly a hopeful song, and it's like, all right, let's keep going and try different things. So, I'm curious what you guys are listening to these days, because you've been kind of everything. You can't go on tour, obviously, which is kind of a not great for a new record when you release it. I'm curious how you're spending your time. What are you listening to, and how are you getting through it?
What are you listening to?
What? I always say that with like, I enjoy a lot of the same genre that we play. Like, I enjoy like the Head and the Heart and Brandy and like Lumineers, all that stuff. But sometimes when I listen to it, I can't stop working. Like, I can't. It's probably the same for you. Like, when you listen to a radio show, you're just like, you're thinking about different things. So I usually unplug with like Kendrick Lamar or classical music or stuff like that I can just, Beastie Boys recently. Stuff where I can just like unplug from work and just start enjoying music again. Not that I don't enjoy what we do.
But I mean, so to answer like what are we doing now that we can't be on the road? I mean, we recorded a 6-song Christmas EP. We snuck in another single for the record. We've been recording, I think, maybe not as much as we could, but I think, another example, we just recorded something for our old label's 20th anniversary, recorded a song called Let Your Heart Hold Fast by our buddy John Black, who has a band called Fort Atlantic. So I think, I don't know if we're super disappointed about not getting the chance to tour, because we hadn't done it in a while, and it just feels like, okay, once we do it again, like, we'll be ready. And I don't know if we were necessarily ready, maybe, to go back out. But I think now that there's some space, I think, again, there's a lot of conversations about like, here's what we want to do, here's what we don't want to do. Mm-hmm. When and if we get the chance to tour this record, I think we'll be excited to do that. And in the meantime, I think it's just about what's next,
No, I was wondering too, is there another batch of songs I'd imagine that are waiting to be recorded? Not just Christmas, but because it's been 2 years since you finished this record. Like, it's funny to talk to artists, because not that this record's old, but in your mind it is.
Yeah. I think there's songs we're starting to kick around. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we've had some failed attempts at starting new songs, and I think it all kind of it's sort of a very natural process. Like, sometimes we'll sit around and like play iPhone demos for each other, and it's like, ooh, that's great. Let's do that, you know?
Yeah, and the three of us will usually almost remind each other, like, what was that one song that you played at that songwriters night? Or like for Coming Alive, like I'd forgotten about that song, but I think you were like, we should record that song. I'm like, what song? It's like, you showed it to me that one time. Like, oh, right, we should record. Like, so it is very natural where we start, it takes a little bit of time, but we all kind of go our separate ways a little bit, start demoing songs, and then come together. And yeah.
One last question before we wrap up with one song. What would you, as you're starting out as a band 10 years ago, is there something you would tell yourself, not to get too philosophical here, but that you would kind of warn your younger self about and say, no, make sure you do this, or don't get caught up in this? Because there's a lot of bands that are just starting out there that are, and obviously it's a different time right now. People aren't getting out on the road per se, but bands are trying to get out there and launch their careers like you were. Is there something that you would kind of tell yourselves now, I wish I knew this then?
Don't tour in an RV when gas is $5 a gallon.
That would be great.
I'm a couple of things come to mind, like, and again, like, you live and you learn, and maybe you kind of don't find out until you go through it, or you fail enough that you shift towards something that actually works. But I think for me, I would say you've got to enjoy the work, like forgive the self-help speak, but like the work is the reward. And you really have to enjoy the process and the journey. And I think early on, I was thinking, I don't know about these guys, but I was thinking the destination is the reward.
Right.
Rather than each time we get to play music together is a privilege. Each time we get on stage, it's not necessarily one step further towards your goal, which it is, I guess. And some shows are, and some shows aren't, and some records are, and some records aren't. But like, it's just, you have to enjoy the act of performing and being creative, and just, I would say you've got to enjoy the process. Because even if you're getting gobs of money, it's not worth it, you've got to love the process. And I would say that maybe don't think so much about where you want to go. Just think about what are the next steps to accomplish what we think we want to accomplish, and are we really going to enjoy the process along the way?
Yeah, I think having like something that we've tried to do, and it's felt very natural, is just being, like I said before, like friends first and bands second. And I see some bands that are just, they hit the road and they don't like each other. It's like, how in the world do you do that? Like, speaking to younger musicians or younger self, like loving each other well, because you're about to go through hell and back, like on the road, the grind. Like, very few people are going to understand how hard it is, like what you're about to go through. And if you don't have that camaraderie within the band, it's like those wheels can, oh my gosh. Quick. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on the new album. And also, final thing, you're doing something with the Seattle Symphony. How did that come about? That's coming up in December.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, funny, the whole, like, what's next, the Seattle Symphony show, and, hoping and praying it still happens, because old Governor Inslee, governor of Washington, just, like, smacked us all with some new COVID guidelines or whatever. But December 4th, online event, streaming, 75-minute show with the Seattle Symphony, all INA tunes, but that will be recorded, and we will put that out as a record, which will kind of be awesome because it's like re-records of old great songs like Tears in Your Eyes and others, Running for Cover, stuff like that, with a symphony. So
how did that happen? How did the idea for that?
So I think they had to shift really when COVID hit, or how I understand it is to really provide their subscribers and the donors and the people that follow the symphony with something really that might be
that might be a departure from just like playing Bach or playing Mozart or something, like something to really engage the community here, as everything has kind of just gone local, you know? So the idea for the Essential series is the symphony is going to collaborate with local Seattle artists, and our friend Andrew Joslin is doing the arrangements. So honestly, it was really Andrew who was tasked with like curating the series with the symphony. So we're getting closer, and we're excited, and we're hoping it happens. So
Very good. And of course, the new Christmas album is out as well. So that's going to come us 6 or so where you guys have recorded. So thank you for doing this today. I really appreciate it. So why don't we wrap up with one more song? You're with Ivan and Alyosha and the EHM's virtual sessions.
thanks so much for having us. Really appreciate it.
You want to do whiskey?
Yeah. All right, we'll play Whiskey and Wine.
Woke up in the morning without you by my side, trying to remember why you said your goodbyes. My head was pounding as I walked through the door. I can't let you leave me like the women before. For that whiskey and wine gets me through the hardest of days. I know it's not right, and I know it's not okay. Those old hymns and rhymes, yeah, they keep the potions away. Be patient, my darling, for the light of my day feels like I'm in the shadow of an unwritten song, searching for the right meaning and where I went wrong. Well, I've been thinking about heaven, I've been thinking about hell. If my woman don't kill me, the Lord might as well. That whiskey and wine gets me through the hardest of days. I know it's not right, I know it's not okay. Those old hymns and rhymes, yeah, they keep the potions away. Be patient, my darling, for the light of my day. If I could persuade you, make my heart beat again, bring me up from the ashes, make me whole, my friend. I said a man don't need rest, we can do without comfort. Oh, but the thread of a life without love will drive the best of men down. To that whiskey and wine gets you through the hardest of days. not right. You know it's not okay. Those old hymns and rhymes, yeah, they keep the potions away. Be patient, my darling, for the light of my day. Be patient, my darling, for the light of my day.
Very nice. Whiskey and Wine from the new album, which is out now, from Ivan and Alyosha. That sounded great. Thank you very much for doing that. There's a lot going on with you guys. The Christmas album is out. Congratulations, continued success, and hopefully we'll get you back out on tour and doing more stuff. But whatever, you guys are keeping busy, and it sounds great. So thank you so much.
Dude, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Appreciate the support.
Our pleasure. Anything we could do, and thank you again. Wrapping up EHM's virtual sessions.